the big purpose of today is, so what did we do last time? The last couple times, what we've been doing is talking about how to talk to your buyers. Then we talked about, okay, how to talk to your buyers when you want to write an offer, when there's something they like and you want to write an offer. And then after that, we talked about, okay, what can you say to them regarding writing an offer? Okay, good. And then it was what bullet points or what things you could throw in the offer to look even better. Okay. And then it was how to talk to the listing agent and what to say and the rapport to build, and not be that agent that all you do is send an email and then duck instead of actually talking to the other agent and things like that. So now we're going to assume you got your offer accepted. And so now what we're going to do in the next couple of weeks on this Saturday class is talk about the problems that come with escrows. So recently we got up to 22 escrows open at any given time. And with 22 escrows comes 22 unique problems. I wish I could say that they were all perfect. They're not. Some come with some ghosts, as you can see behind me. I got some ghosts here. Some come with some definite curveballs. Anyways, so I thought first class, talk about best practices for home inspections, repair requests, that sort of thing. So I am going to share my screen and play a video that Joey and I made. We actually recorded this. I think it was May. So anyways, so this video it's obviously edited fairly nice. There's one portion that I'm missing, and that is I wanted to throw in there other properties, other repair requests from other escrows, not just this particular one that you're going to see in a second. So that's why this video is not 100% done, but I at least wanted to do it. I decided to do it for this class today. So here we go. And I am praying it works. All right, where did I go? Here we go. All right, here we go.
There's no sound on my side.
Okay. Okay. I was afraid of that. Let's get rid of these. Let's get rid of these. Try it one more time. First of all, can someone talk? So, oh, give me a second. Give me a second. AirPods, and I wonder if that's what's doing. Does someone mind turning on and saying something? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. Okay, we're gonna try one more time. It totally worked last night. Okay, here we go.
Hi, welcome to another edition.
Yes.
Okay, it's fine now.
Today we're going to talk about home inspections and repair requests. We're here at a home in Downey, and Frank Anaruma from Anaruma Inspections is going to inspect this home and share with us his findings. So, what's the purpose of a home inspection? The purpose is for the home inspector to look inside, outside, every which way, and figure out what deficiencies that home has. And then, at the end, report it to the buyer and all those that are in attendance. The seller is going to disclose things that they know to be wrong in their transfer disclosure and seller property questionnaire. Nobody knows the home better than the seller, but the home inspection might find things that the homeowner didn't know themselves. The buyer has approximately 17 days to do their due diligence. One of those things is the home inspection and any type of inspection they want to do on the home. Of course, the main one is the home inspection, and that's what we're here to do today. Thank you to Frank Anaruma from Anaruma Inspections for doing a complete home inspection of this home that actually is in escrow right now. And we're going to take a look after the home inspection at the findings that Frank will go over with us. And then we're going to look at an actual repair request from this actual property and see what the outcome was. Well,
Mary, I know that Mondo and Rich know what house this is. I'm sure they'll figure it out if they haven't. But Mary, this is the one on 10, shoot, what was the address? Oh, goodness. It was the one on Bellman. It was the one on Bellman like a few months ago. It closed, I think, in May.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
You can see it right from the office right here, like the street on the other side of Florence right here by the dial. That's Bellman. And it was a list right here. It sold for $760. And it was actually a really smooth transaction. It was the one with a lady named Eleni. That was, I sold 3 properties with her, the same owner. This was
Okay, yeah, the name sounds familiar.
this was the second one. So here.
Okay.
we'll spend time looking at other repair requests on other homes. And finally, some last minute tips that you need to know to do a repair request correctly when you represent a buyer, and how to handle a repair request when you represent the seller. So let's take a look at this home as Frank Anaruma goes over the inspection and inspects this home.
Here goes Frank.
Take a look. I know today we don't have a buyer for this as we're doing this today, but if as a homeowner that would maybe be buying this house, what would be your concerns, your biggest items of concerns, or maybe some of the major areas? Is there any concerns that you have that?
So typically the top 5 things that we're going to check out is the foundation. Everybody wants to make sure the home's on a good foundation. Foundation here, everything is fine, no signs of any problems. Second is going to be your HVAC unit. You do have newer units, they're working fine. We did recommend just some minor stuff there, like changing the filter. And we talked about R22 for the air conditioner. We used R22 to about 2014, so it's still a newer unit and it's still functioning fine.
How old do you think? 10, 5?
I think this unit was about 8 years old, if I
Oh,
remember correctly.
okay.
So still looks good.
Okay.
And then your plumbing. So we have fresh water lines coming in, which is copper, which is what you want to have, either copper or PEX. And then the drain lines, we did have some little stuff, but I think that's just going to be some minor maintenance of getting that out. Okay. The next thing is going to be the electrical panel. We have a brand new electrical service, my guess 10 years old approximately. It's a 100 amp panel. It can be upgraded to a 200 amp service if they wanted to upgrade to a larger panel. And then last one's going to be the roof. So the roof is like the last main major component that we didn't discuss. The roof is, again, looking like it's a 25-year roof and showing signs of wear and tear. Overall, it looks like it's watertight. We do have some water stains up in the attic, but they appear to be from the old roof. I don't believe it's from this current roof. You have roof penetrations where pipes and everything are going through the roof. All the tar there is all sealed. So my guess is maybe 5 or 6 years ago, it actually got sealed up. It's spray painted over the tar, so it helped keep it together. Normally between 7 to 10 years, that tar starts to crack and it needs to be redone. Just like normal maintenance on your car, your roof does require some normal maintenance.
But you didn't see any patchwork on the existing roof?
No, I didn't
Just
see any
older.
kind of patchwork or anything that would indicate a previous problem.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions, give us a call.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you.
So the home inspection found 3 major things that the buyer was worried about. Number one was the plumbing, as we saw there. They said that it's not draining sufficiently, not draining fast enough. The second thing, they said the roof was at the end of its life and had some issues, even had some structural issues in that back patio. The third thing was that the electrical panel was not sufficient enough to handle the electricity in this home. So what did the buyer do? They asked for a $5,000 credit in lieu of those repairs or any other repairs. What did the seller do? The seller accepted. Yes. From there, it was easy. The appraisal was done. That got done. Great. Perfect. Their loan was in place. So what's the last thing that happened? We asked for the buyer to remove all their contingencies, and they did. Awesome. And so this transaction went to the end and closed with perfect fashion. Hope all of them go that way. But as you'll see from some other repair requests that we'll show you right now, it's not always that perfect.
And that's the part that's not
There's some times where
edited.
they ask for a laundry list of things. There's other times where the buyer makes a request and it's heard on deaf ears. Other times, maybe they ask for a combination of credit and some repairs. Let's take a look at that right now.
So that didn't happen.
I wanted to show you some repair requests and the outcomes from them. I hope you found it useful. But the point of this is to help you, the agent, in your next transaction. Whether you're representing the buyer or the seller, you have to be prepared for what's going to come about. You're going to work with all sorts of people, different buyers, different sellers, and different agents. Let's go through how you should represent each side. If you represent the buyer, make sure to be at the home inspection, especially the summary, so you can hear the findings that the inspector has to talk about. You also want to ask questions. You want to watch your buyer's reaction or non-reaction. You want to reduce their fears and anxieties and be there for them to represent their best interests. You're there to navigate the situation and bring a win-win outcome for both parties. When you represent the seller, it's also important to be present because you are the eyes and ears for your seller that might not be there. You also want to ask questions. The other reason you're there is because you don't know if something may go wrong. What if the inspector leaves the water running in the bathroom, goes under the house, and before you know it, maybe there was a clog in the shower, and now the water has gone into the bathroom and into the hallway. Yikes. Now, if your seller is going to be present, that's fine, but please tell your seller to zip it up. Really, your seller shouldn't talk if they're going to be there. They should only answer questions the inspector has, or if there's something the inspector doesn't know about where something is, they're welcome to chime in and share, oh, well, you can find that over there. What you don't want to see is that seller making comments about the inspector's ability or the inspector's findings. For example, it would be really bad if the seller yells out after the inspector says something, if the seller yells out, that's not the way it is. Is that inspector blind? Yeah, no, we don't want to do that, okay? So if the seller's going to be present, make sure they're polite, respectful, and only there when spoken to. Just like with the buyer's agent, the listing agent is there to hear that summary and the inspector's findings and ask questions, just like I said, for the buyer's agent. Because when that repair request comes in from that buyer's agent, you need to be able to see what is relevant, what is important, what could be a deal breaker, and talk to your seller. So make sure you're present at your next home inspection. So we walked you through a home inspection. We went over how to do a repair request, but just a few more tips to help you along the way. First off, before you do a repair request, or if you received a repair request, make sure you get estimates. Example, the inspection says that the roof is at the end of its life, and the buyer's agent asked for a new roof. Did they give you a roof estimate? Did they give you a roof evaluation saying that it needed a new roof? Possibly not. So make sure you have a roofer take a look if they say something about a roof. If they say something about the electrical panel, get an electrician out, and so on. If you represent a buyer, and that buyer has a home inspection and wants to ask for a whole bunch of things, one good tip is try to ask your buyer, what is the most important thing to praise them the most? And focus on 1, 2, or 3 items instead of a whole laundry list. If you represent a seller and you get a laundry list of things from the buyer's agent, and the seller is really hesitant to do anything, then ask the seller and yourself this next question. Will the next buyer ask for this item if we say no and the deal cancels? That really puts relevance on it. And yes, I am aware that the seller may feel like saying, I'm saying no to everything because I said it was as is. I'm also aware that for the price you sold, that maybe is why the homeowner doesn't want to do anything. So you have to take all of those things into consideration. A big point to remember if you're representing the buyer or the seller is that you're most likely selling a home that's not brand new, it's older. And so the buyer needs to be aware that they're not buying a perfect product. Think about this. If you take a 25-year-old and a 65-year-old, which one is going to have more health issues? Same thing with the house. If the home is 70 years old, it's going to have some issues. And if it's brand new, it may not have as many. And so you have to take into consideration the age of the home. One last important thought. Remember, you and the other agent are on the same team. You want to make this deal work, right? So you have to look at yourself sometimes as a trial lawyer. You're in that courtroom and you realize maybe it's best if we settle. So what do? You go in the hallway outside the courtroom and work it out with the other lawyer. And sometimes you need to do that by picking up a phone and talking to the other agent and say, hey, what will your buyer do to make this deal work, or vice versa? So remember, work with the other agent. Don't make them your adversary. You're on the same team. I want to take a moment to talk about you, the agent. You're the buyer's agent or the listing agent during an inspection. If you're the listing agent, so many times a listing agent doesn't find it necessary to be present at the home inspection, thinking, I'm going to get the report later. It's a waste of my 2 to 3 hours of time. I can appreciate that thought. However, there's some major things that you can see if you're in person, such as you can hear what the home inspector says, you can ask questions, and you can really see it for yourself so you can explain to your seller what the issues actually were. Because as we all know, a home inspection report itself could be scary. With 50, 60 pages in a report, it could look scarier than it actually is. I also want to advise as a buyer's agent, be present and go to as many home inspections as you can, because over time, you're going to learn so much about the different aspects: roof, electrical, foundation, plumbing, and you name it. So try to be there. Over the years, I've been present for probably around 500 plus. Now, I've had over 1,400 transactions, and yes, I haven't been at all of them. My assistant has been, okay? That person was my eyes and ears to report back to me, okay? But it's really important that you or a licensed agent are present so you can get a full sense of what's going on. Thanks for watching this video about home inspections and repair requests. Until next time, thanks for joining me.
Okay, I still have to edit
Nice
it.
video. I liked it.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I just realized Carmen and Alexis were in the waiting room. I can't see the waiting room. So yeah, and I just realized that last section there was a repeat. Apparently, apparently the big takeaways is be present. And the one interesting thing that wasn't in there, so I had Frank do his summary as if we were like, at a real inspection, and I took out 20 minutes of Frank talking about every single detail, because as we were editing it, Joey was falling asleep. Just kidding. But so yeah, I just didn't think, I tried to edit that part so you didn't have to hear the whole thing. And but one interesting thing that happened, so I asked Frank to do a home inspection on that particular house, right? The interesting thing is the inspection had been done by the buyer's agent inspector already. And so this was the second home inspection done on the same house within 2 weeks of each other. And the really interesting thing was, so for example, the three things, as I said, when I was in the kitchen, what I was talking about, the three things that the buyer's agent's inspector found that got the buyer all worried was number one, what was the slow drainage. Slow drainage was number one. And saying that because of that, the pipes were all messed up and the drain pipes needed to be replaced. The second was that the electrical panel was totally not sufficient for what the house had. The house had central air, whatever. It did have a 100 amp panel on it. It did have AC, but it was actually sufficient. But that inspector said, oh, no way, it's not sufficient for modern day. And so that was the second thing that kind of spooked the buyer. There's a third. Oh, the third one is really interesting. Okay, so remember that, remember the patio I was on, where it was kind of echoey in the video? To go from the living room to that step down family room, the original house stopped at the living room, right? And then it was added on, they added on a step down enclosed patio or family room. The home inspector said that the beam in the living room, the end of the living room that then led to the back part, the home inspector said that the beam was not sufficient to hold up the house. And actually there was cutouts in the living room. Like, in other words, there used to be windows there, right, leading out, but now that they added on, they didn't put windows in there. But so there's big cutouts. So he's trying to say that the beam going across in that living room was not sufficient. And he took it a step further and said there was another patio, like when you went outside the family room, there was a covered patio right when you walked out. He was trying to say that the beam in there was not sufficient, that it was a 2x4 and that it should have been a 2x6, and that the length of that piece of wood was too long and it needed more support. So, yeah. The problem with that was it could have been disastrous. They only asked for $5,000 for all of that, which is nothing. If it was really a beam problem, that beam, structural, I mean, it could have been 10 grand right there to have to take out the original beam, put a header going all the way across. So that would have been disastrous. The other thing with the electrical, so this is what's so interesting, and this is part of what took so long when Frank and I talked, was I asked Frank questions about these three things as if this was my first time. But it was funny because I already had a home inspection when Frank was doing this. So the second thing was the electrical. So I said to him, is it sufficient? And he said, yes. And then I explained, I said, well, how much does it cost to add on? And no joke, on this particular panel, and by the way, what I'm about to say, don't think every electrical adding on a 200 amp panel is always this cheap. But this particular one, they had upgraded it already and they only put in 100 amp. But it had enough room in the panel that you could have added for about $800 to $1,000. You could have added another 100 amps and made it a 200 amp panel for relatively cheap. And so, yeah, the home inspector made it sound really terrible. And then of course the slow drainage, Frank did point out the slow drainage in the bathtub and in the sink. He said the sink is probably local, like, something getting in the sink underneath. The tub, he said, yeah, if this house has been vacant, or if like it was a house, how he put it was, if it's a house with all girls with, having long hair getting down the drain, that could happen. So from time to time, you need to kind of take this wire thing. I can use the word snake because there is the snake thing, but it's not. You don't even need that. So yeah, so they kind of blew it out of proportion. However, they only asked for $5,000, which was really as if we got off the hook, truly, because the biggest item, the inspector didn't even say a damn thing about. The biggest item, and Frank said it in the video, was the roof. The roof was at least 20 years old, and it was a 25-year composition shingle roof. So that roof is going to go in the next few years. That's probably the biggest item, and that would cost 10 to 15,000 alone right there. So anyways, but kind of interesting. Anyways, what else was I going to say? So yeah, I kind of wrote it down, and again, I gotta edit the video one more time. Let's see what I wrote. So again, what I said in the video, you know, be present. I know I beat that to death. Ask questions, and the reason to ask questions, it's like, let's see, how do I say this? When the inspector says like, okay, when the inspector says that the electrical panel has, you know, is overloaded, you know, maybe to ask, well, what kind of, maybe if you ask a question like, okay, well, you know, also I had mentioned watch your buyer's reaction to things too. If you start to see them get all like big eyes, or you start to see them get worried, or kind of start slumping down, or like, you know, damn, this house is, you know, bad shape, or you hear them make comments, right? So, you know, let's say they say that the electrical panel is overloaded. Maybe you would maybe say, okay, well, what kind of a fix is that? What needs to be done? And then the inspector may say something. Those kind of things would help. Win-win situation in terms of the repair request, things like that. You want to have a win-win. Here we go again, be present. I said that already. Tell your seller not to talk. And I really mean that. I usually advise sellers not to be present, but if they are going to be, as I said in the video at the very end, basically be seen, not heard, unless you're asked a question, because some sellers have a big mouth. Some sellers have a lot of pride in their home, which is understandable. So, so yeah, so better that they're not there. Oh, here's one. Focus on a few things, not the whole list. So, you know, you get a whole laundry list of things. And I always like to say that if you took 100 buyers and you gave them the same, actually, if you took 100 buyers and you gave them that Bellman repair request, whether it was Frank's or the other inspector, and the interesting part is I actually know the other home inspector, and okay, I'll leave it at that. I won't be negative. But if you took 100 buyers, you're going to get about 10% of the population is going to say, oh my, I want every single thing on that repair request done, like every single thing. And if they don't do it, I don't want to buy the house. And then on the other side, you got 10% that will say, oh, my compadre is a contractor. Don't worry about a thing. I'm not even going to do a home inspection. You made me pay for this. Not a big deal at all. I'm not worried about anything. My buddy is going to help me, or my family member, or whatever, right? No problem. So those are the extremes. The 10% that want everything done, the 10% that don't want anything done. But the 80% in the middle, you're going to have people. So we all have experiences in life, right? And because of our experiences in life, some things, for lack of a better word, some things trigger us about different things than something else. You know, I'll leave it at that. But when it comes to homes or things that could go wrong with a home, you may have someone that, you know, their dad was an electrician, so they look out for every little electrical thing. So when they see that home inspection, anything electrical, they're going to want it done. You may have someone else that maybe as a child, no joke, maybe as a child, they saw their house get flooded because of a plumbing leak or something like that, or whatever the case may be, or maybe they owned a home and their first home they had issues with um, the heating and air in their house. It was never cool in their house, or there was one room that never never worked well because of the duct work or whatever. So they're really sensitive to heating and air problems. The point is, in general, the 80%, somebody, they'll all be different. Of course, if there's something major on a house, they will all gravitate to that. Of course, if the home inspector says the roof is shot, of course, everyone's going to say, hey, I want the roof done. But basically, you will see those 80% be pretty much the same, probably the most major things that came up, and then maybe, depending on their experience, ask for something over another thing, that sort of thing. But the point I was trying to make with this is try not to do a home inspect, try not to do a repair request where you ask for everything. Try to do a repair request where you keep to the biggest items. Try to explain to your buyer that if we ask for a repair request and if we overwhelm them with things, that we may lose the seller. They may not hear anything we say if we gave them a list, like this, really long. They won't even, they'll just say no, and we don't want that. So ask your buyer, well, what was most important to you? Or if you feel comfortable enough or confident enough on what to say, you can, speak up and say, you know what, from this report, the couple things that I think are important is the roof. He mentioned the roof is at the end of its life, and the slow drainage seems to be a problem. The electrical, let's check with an electrician, that sort of thing. And then you put a repair request that's a little more concise and that sort of thing. So I think that's the best thing to do. And as I just said, let me look at my notes again, as I just said about the estimates, get estimates. Don't just pull a number out of thin air, especially if you're working with a listing agent that knows better. So make sure you get an estimate before you send a repair request. Okay, if you represent the seller, I said, will the next buyer ask for this item, right? And that's going to help determine with your seller if, what's important and what's not. If every buyer is going to ask for the same thing, then you better fix it, that sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, I hope you all understand the word expectations. If the seller was listed for 800,000 in 2020 and they sold for 760, and there's a repair request and they said, I'm selling as is, they're not going to want to do a darn thing. And so you have to make sure to set up that buyer's agent. If you represent the seller, you need to set that buyer's agent up to understand, okay, you do your home inspection. Of course, you're going to do it, but just know, when I said as is in that counter, or we were going back and forth and I verbally told you, okay, if he's going to sell for this price, he's not doing anything. You need to make that really clear that you're not doing anything. So if they come out with a repair request and ask for a bunch of stuff, they're going to say no. And the same thing for your buyer. You have to make your buyer understand, hey, we got that seller down 40,000. So, of course, let's do a home inspection. But, when they ask you, oh, do you think we can ask for it? You should say, hey, it was made really clear that they're not going to do anything. So, okay. The other thing was the age thing. And yeah, you do have to make your buyer aware that they're buying something that's not brand new, especially if you're selling homes in Downey and Whittier and Santa Fe Springs, Norwalk, Bellflower, Pico, all these areas around here, which are post-World War II houses. There's stuff that's going to happen. And the other thing, which is going to be a topic all by itself for another day, is everybody's different. Some people are more picky. But the biggest thing is you need to make sure you understand your buyer, you understand what their expectations are, and then of course that you set up realistic expectations for them. Okay. The other one I said was that you and the other agent are on the same team. So just like when we were talking about writing an offer, you really have to get with that other agent sometimes and pick up a phone and say, hey, this is what's bothering my buyer, and I don't want to send it, and then have issues. So I want to call you ahead of time and just tell you that they're worried about all these things. What do you think your seller will do? And then the agent will tell you, well, okay, let me talk to him. And so sometimes you kind of talk it out before you put it in writing. It doesn't always work, because sometimes it just helps to have it in paper first and then go from there. But if you do put it in writing and then send it, maybe you want to call the other agent and say, okay, I know I sent you a long, long list, but I can tell you that this is what's most important to my buyer. My buyer's really worried about the drainage. My buyer's really worried about the electrical panel. And, we talked to an electrician. It's not that bad. I sent you the estimate. So if you can get them to do the plumbing work and the electrical only, I think we'll have a deal. Something like that. Okay. And again, going back to the in-person thing, I was talking about the times where maybe like something goes wrong. I've actually been in more than one home inspection where the house flooded, or could have flooded. Yes, I had one time where a house flooded because the utilities were off. This was not a home inspection, but I'm just going to tell you, the utilities were off, but the utilities were turned back on for a home inspection, but no one lived there. And then when I went to check at the house, the water was running, and the water had been running for 2 or 3 days, and the hardwood floors had buckled over, and it was a mess. So anyways, but yeah, I have been at other home inspection where, yeah, the home inspector was under the house. He had run the water. He had, turned on all the water, then goes underneath the house and checks everything out, looking for leaks under the house and checking for foundation, all that. Meanwhile, up here at the house level, the house had, gone, the house had started, water had seeped in. One last one that was really bad. So again, when you leave a home inspection, always make sure that everything is turned off. Here it comes. It even hurts to tell this story. Last year I had one where the home inspection was done. I had told the person that from my office that was there, make sure you turn everything off or go around and check. And they sort of did, but forgot to check the hall bathroom. And the inspector had left the shower on on all hot. The drainage wasn't a problem. It drained, no problem. But because the hot water and a closed environment, it had been literally from Friday afternoon until Monday when the appraisal was done. No one had been in the house. That bathroom had mold all over the ceilings. I mean, it was like a sauna in there because the hot water had been running all weekend. Thank goodness there was the drainage was fine. But yeah, that bathroom, we had to remediate it for mold and all that, and repaint the walls and redo the drywall in there. So what a mess, right? So anyways, so yeah, I don't know for who's on the line. Some of us are newer, but if there's any repair requests or anything you've been doing lately that you wanted to bring up, or a situation, be happy to talk about it. Or any questions. No? Okay. Let's see.